Okay, for this project, you're going to be doing a full value still life. So you can take a look at the instructions for all the specifics about what objects you need for your still life. And you're going to do some thumbnail sketches and a quick value study before you start on your final drawing. But this demo is going to walk you through how I did this example for the still life. Everything's going to be a little bit different since you guys are using different objects, but we'll just give you the general idea of how you can approach this drawing. So for my value still life, I decided to use charcoal. You can use graphite if you'd like, if you prefer. It's totally up to you. So for my charcoal still life, I just wanted to show you guys one technique that you can use is to tone your paper to a mid-tone gray using vine charcoal, not the compressed charcoal. It's going to be the vine. It'll be the vine or the willow charcoal. So I'm going to tone it to a nice even mid-tone gray, and I'll start that as my background. That way I can pull out the lights and add in darks rather than just starting from white. But again, you can use graphite if you want, just regular pencils, or you're welcome to use charcoal, whatever you're more comfortable with or you want to explore. So after I got my paper toned to the mid-tone gray area, I decided to use my kneaded eraser to pull out the light areas first. So I've already done the sketching and measuring. I didn't include that in this demo since we just went over that last week. So you can't really see that in this drawing. But what I did was I took my kneaded eraser after I had the objects laid in where I wanted them, and I started pulling out the light areas so you can follow the general layout of your value map that you did in preparation for this project. And you can always go back and make things darker, so just get a general idea of where the light areas are. So after I had my light areas laid in, I went in with my vine charcoal again, not the compressed charcoal. I'm still using vine charcoal at this point. And I laid in the darker areas, the shaded areas. And again, it's not quite perfect yet. I'm going to need to make adjustments. But at this point, it's going to look very similar to the value map that we did in preparation for this drawing. So you can see it's really starting to come together pretty quickly here because I have three tones established from my mid-gray tone background, the light areas, and now the dark areas. So what I'm going to do is take this basic three-step value scale and I'm going to work around the drawing and start adding all of the details to the objects. But I just want to show you guys how quickly this starts to come out when you have even just three tones in the drawing, a mid-tone, a light tone, and a dark tone. So for this drawing specifically, I decided to start with the objects that were black to add the details because that seemed like the simplest place to start. So the ball, the eye patch on the pirate, and the belt on the pirate being black, I went in with the compressed charcoal and darkened those areas. You can also use your charcoal pencils for any areas that are that need a thinner line. Charcoal pencils have compressed charcoal inside of them, so they're the same thing. You can just get a finer tip on your charcoal pencil using your sandpaper pad to sharpen it into a point. So I got my compressed charcoal, went in on the ball, which is black, and darkened it all the way around, and then I went back in with the kneaded eraser and pulled out the highlight on the ball. So I'm still going to have to go back and add in the reflected light, but I'm going to save that towards the end. I just want to get some information on this object, and then I'm going to work around all the objects in the drawing. At this point with the compressed charcoal on the page, it's going to start to get pretty messy. So you can put a clean sheet of scrap paper under your hand while you're working. That way you're not smearing your charcoal if you're using it, and that's even a good idea if you're using graphite. Once you start laying in the softer graphite, your 4B and 6B graphite, it'll start to get a little messy too if you accidentally touch it. So it's a good idea to stick a clean sheet of paper under your drawing hand. Okay, so continuing to work around this drawing, I went back in and added the stripes to the shirt on the pirate. And after that, I'm moving on to the screwdriver. And the order of these objects is sort of random. It's up to you. I would start with your most basic objects and then work towards your more complex objects. For the screwdriver, I went in with the kneaded eraser and I shaped it into something, into the shape of the tool that I needed. So I could pull out the areas on the screwdriver that were lighter. And then I also cleaned up the light side of the cube at this point. From here, I cleaned up the cube a little bit by blending the tones on the planes of the cube. I do want to point out that there are no outlines in this drawing. The edges are defined by shifts in tone. And I did also lighten the background around the screwdriver as well, so I could see the edges more clearly since it's a similar tone to the background. But there is no dark outline for the objects that's going to flatten out the drawing. So we want to avoid any hard outlines. We are now working with strictly shifts in tone to define the edges of the objects. Next, I worked on the mug. There are some nice bright highlights since this is my shiny object. So I can use the kneaded eraser to get most of that out. And then I went back in with my plastic eraser. I'm not sure what comes in your kit. It might be like the pink one, but it's like the same one that would be on the end of a regular number 2 pencil. So your plastic eraser will pull out brighter highlights, and you can get a sharper line, right? Because it's a little bit tougher than your kneaded eraser. The kneaded eraser is more for a gradual shift in tone. I also made careful observation of the cast shadow from the pirate on the inside of the mug, so starting to get some more details on this drawing. From here I added details to the pirate. I saved this for the end of the drawing since it's the most complex. I also finished up the background by creating a gradient from left to right. This helps for my drawing specifically because the ball is dark on that left side. So having a lighter background creates good contrast to distinguish the subject from the background. Also on the right side, the pirate and the mug are lighter in tone overall, so having a dark background helps them pop out visually. Okay, and the last thing I did on this drawing is I added cast shadows for the ball and the screwdriver. I also went back in and added reflected light to those objects because it was missing. So when you're done, or you think you're done with your drawing, before you turn it in, I want you to take a moment to review every object in your drawing to make sure it has a full range of value, a highlight, a light area, a core shadow, a shaded area, a reflected light, and a cast shadow. It can be easy to miss, and that's how you're going to be graded, right? It's on value. So before you turn it in, just do a quick checklist, make sure there's no hard outlines, and make sure that all of your objects have a full range of value.